Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. All right, that's better. Thanks a lot to Elise and to the Campaign for America's Future for the invitation to come and talk to you today. So the task today is to talk about how we build a movement for jobs in the country. I think we all share a sense that we're living in a very big historical moment and that we're all being called to rise to it, to develop a movement that can change people's lives and the debate in the country. And I'm sure it's been said a million times today. We had an unemployment rate of 7.6% in 2009, and we thought it was a national emergency. We passed the Recovery Act. Today we have an unemployment rate of 8.9%, and we're having a debate about how much, how fast, how far to cut programs to cut hundreds of thousands more jobs. That is madness. Washington is talking about budget deficits rather than full employment, which is the only practical path to get us to deficit reduction. States are tearing down unions that have built the middle class rather than creating jobs to enable people to have a pathway to the middle class. The feds in the states are shredding safety nets rather than launching a massive humanitarian response to the social catastrophe that our country is experiencing. So the disconnect between the reality in the country and the reality in Washington among elites is perhaps at an all-time high. So I think we all know in our hearts and our guts that the only possible bridge between these two realities is a social movement led by those most affected by this economic crisis, which is, by the way, a very large group. The unemployed and underemployed, those fearful of losing a job, the family and friends of the unemployed, the foreclosed, the indebted, and workers under assault. Policy papers, better messages, better communication strategies are all important. They really are, but they can't substitute for this fundamental reality that we only get big change when people rise up and demand it. This is a lesson that the heroic workers and community members in Wisconsin and Indiana and Ohio are reteaching us. It is a lesson that my hero, Frances Fox Piven, and I love her, the more she's attacked by Glenn Beck, the more I love her, to Larry Goodwin, to Eric Foner, to Charles Payne have taught us. It's a lesson that the populists, the abolitionists, the suffragists, the union movement, the civil rights movement have taught us. So this is our heritage, but it is also our calling, our purpose, and our task today. So how do we do it? How do we build a movement for good jobs in this country? So we at CCC have been doing some thinking, and I'm going to kind of beta test it on you today, see how that goes, about how would we apply some of the lessons that we learned over the last 15 years in playing a role in the development of the immigrant rights movement to the jobs crisis. And the immigrant rights movement has not succeeded in its goals, to be sure, but it has put millions of people in the streets and has begun to change the country's politics. And in our work on jobs thus far, we feel like there really is a movement moment. And I just want to share a couple of anecdotes with you about that. In North Carolina, we're partnering with a group called Women Vets, which is a grassroots organization led by women who served in Iraq and Afghanistan. To our country's shame, most of the group's members have been jobless or unemployed since the day they left the military. Many of these women are homeless. They are fighting for better reintegration services for all women veterans with an emphasis on jobs, housing, and health care. And they are ready to stand up and fight. In Cincinnati, Ohio, we had a team of grassroots organizers go through the poor inner city area of Cincinnati wearing a CCC t-shirt that said, "I need a job," with white lettering, a bright blue t-shirt that's been on the Evening News and The Economist magazine now. And took them an hour to get 4 blocks down the street, and they had dozens of people who were unemployed who wanted to join a movement for jobs in the country. So there is tremendous, we should applaud for them, they're our heroes. There is tremendous pain in our country, but there is also tremendous appetite for action and for movement. So how do we take that kind of energy to scale in a way that changes the conversation and breaks the dishonest debate that we're having in Washington and around the country? So thinking about my own experience with a different movement, the immigrant rights movement, I tried to think about what were the ingredients to getting something like this going. And I think there basically are 4. First, there's got to be a clear and compelling goal. In that case, it was a path to citizenship that touches people's deepest sense of identity and aspiration and calls them to step forward and take extraordinary risks that makes them willing to do that. So I think of the extraordinary young people who last year came out as undocumented and unafraid, or the 250,000 people who showed up for the March for America almost a year ago. And we should remember that that idea is kind of a mainstream idea now. When we proposed it in the late 90s, people essentially thought we were smoking crack. And some people actually said it, some people hinted at it. So what's the equivalent on the jobs agenda? Something that, if we were smoking crack, that we would propose that would light up people's imaginations and really inspire them to take those kinds of big risks. And I would submit, this is a working hypothesis, that the goal of a good job with dignity for every single person in this country who needs and wants one is such a compelling goal. Includes the ideas of full employment, the need for unions, and all the issues from retirement security to wages and income that we care about. We also need a story. We've got a draft one. I'm going to skip over it. I think Van Jones, who's here today, has the most compelling story that I've heard. But we need a story that makes sense of this goal and of people's experience and gives life to the action. The second ingredient is we need organizations and leaders who can act as two-way connectors or hubs, channeling the ideas and energy that surfaces on the ground out of people's experience, developing local leaders' skills, keeping people connected to what's happening politically. And this two-way quality of the interaction is critical. We're not Amway salespeople. So we listen. We actually shape what we do based on what people say, what catches fire, rather than just running cookie-cutter campaigns. And we know that these kinds of leaders and organizations exist all over the country who know how to do this or who can be taught to do this in the union movement, in community organizing groups, in civic associations, service groups, civil rights groups, women's groups. And a big and compelling idea, story, goal, will also result in more and more of these groups being created every day if we can get it going. The key thing here, in my view, is that our task is not just to mobilize existing members of existing organizations, because there are just not enough of us, even if we added them all up together, but recruiting new people to the movement, and also not relying only on paid staff, because there aren't enough of those either, to bring people in. So in the immigrant movement, we experimented with the New Organizing Institute in using the methodology of Camp Obama to engage hundreds and thousands of new leaders around the country while getting educated and informed to tell their story, to make a strategy for action, and to take action. The populist movement over a century ago sent thousands of volunteer lecturers all over the country to teach, to listen, to learn, to form common identity. The feminist movement used consciousness raising. The form of how we do it is less important than the purpose, which is to bring new people who are unconnected into the conversation and into action. We need connective tissue, third, to connect these local activists not only to a national agenda, but to each other. And fourth, I'm going a little faster now, we obviously need to make the best possible use of the opportunities created by new technology, social media, and also conventional ethnic media. So the immigrant rights movement was unimaginable without Spanish language radio and TV. We have similar kinds of assets that could be deployed, I think, in a fight around jobs. So here's a specific idea to get the bidding going on how we might get a movement started on jobs. What if we had a story, and I think we actually have coming closer and closer to one. What if we had a goal, and our idea for that goal that's big and animating and exciting is a good job with dignity for every single person in this country? And then what if we, several of our organizations, whoever wants to come to the party, said that we were going to hold 10,000 house meetings all across the country with at least 10 people, half of whom would be members of no organization, would be new to this work, people who are directly impacted by the crisis. On the same weekend, we brought people together. And there's a parallel to this would be a vibrant social media campaign so that people in places where there aren't organizations or leaders to recruit them could start up with toolkits and support centrally. We'd partner with Black and Latino radio talk show hosts, the progressive blogosphere, to also get the thing lift off, to get it up and running. And at those meetings, we would have people share their stories and understand the extent to which their private pain requires public solution, and that those different aspects of how people are hurting in this economic crisis are deeply related. So what would it actually look like? My colleague, and I'll end with this, Gabe Gonzalez, who is here, painted this picture, which I found very moving. Imagine a warm day in late spring, I'm going to say June. In living rooms, church basements, union halls, people are gathering. Many of the hosts are nervous. This is their first experience with chairing a meeting of their neighbors. A few are calm. They've done this before with their community organization, with their unions, with Move On, or someone else. The crowd quiets, people take their seats, and the chair starts. I want to thank everyone for coming here tonight. I know our topic is important, but it still means something when people leave their home and kids for a few hours, so I just wanted to say thanks. And now to the topic at hand. We are here tonight to talk about jobs. It seems like there are not enough good jobs to go around. The room is filled with people of all economic levels, but a quarter to a third are people who are unemployed or have a family member who is. Well, it seems like the people in Washington don't have any ideas about how to create the jobs we need. So it's come down to us. All across the country tonight, people are getting together and talking about what we can do to create more good jobs. Some folks have ideas, we'll hear about them, but we're hoping to hear more from you about how we do that. The meeting lasts for 2 hours. People tell their own stories about their experience of economic hardship. There's information shared, perhaps a video that does some education about the larger picture. And we don't leave the meeting without people identifying both a local thing that they could do, which might be beating up on the bank that's sitting on hordes of cash while foreclosing on people's houses and not investing in entrepreneurship and job creation, or fighting assaults on collective bargaining, or budget cuts, as in North Carolina, where dozens of schools are being closed in mostly communities of color, whatever the example might be. And also a national convergence point, which we could figure out. And it might be that we decide we're going to focus on swarming Republican offices who are engaged in massive budget cutting and union busting and refusing to make investments. Or it might be a campaign on banks around their failure to invest in job creation. Think Good Jobs Nation swamps Tea Party Nation. So after the meeting breaks up, the last guest is seen out. The chair sighs, sits down, and digs out her cell phone. Hi, it's Betty Jones in Columbia. We had 24 people, and we decided to meet with the mayor. For 20 minutes, she talks, and after giving her report, she tells the organizer on the line what she needs from them. Information, arguments, talking points, strategies. They talk about who showed up, and especially who showed up for the first time and what they said. They talk strategy, and finally Betty asks the questions she dreads, the one that's been the back of her mind all night. How did it go everywhere else? The organizer laughs, turn on your TV, he says. And the lead story is about events like that all over the country. So consider this an invitation. We at CCC would love to work with anyone here that wants to build a movement of this kind for good jobs for everyone who needs them in this country. The movement is bigger than us. What I laid out, I am perfectly prepared to admit, because it has been known to happen many times before, might be the wrong goal, the wrong story, and the wrong movement building tactics. But we have to get beyond the exhortation to organize and actually do it. I think the people are ready for it, and I think if we do it, we can turn the country around quicker than anybody now imagines to be possible. Thank you very much.